from. Like he mentions a quote in the book. He says, if you don't like what you're seeing, go back to check what you have sown, because it's true. Like what's coming out of you is a product of what is going in you. Learning point number 1. I got loads of notes. Hi, this is Ty from Wedex Book Club.
You say you want my love, come make I give you small. Sorry, chop and will make you belly full. I won't give you my love, yo. I don't need silver or gold. I go follow you go today. You don't say where I don't they pray for someone way.
Hi, this is Jael, and thanks for watching once again. I hope you've been reading along with us. Last few weeks just gave you my 5 favorite quotes from the 3 sections of the book. So today I'm going to give you my learning points. So I hope you've been reading along, and I hope that you've got some nuggets from it. I forced nuggets from it. My overall thoughts for the book, well, I wasn't excited, let me not lie. I wasn't excited. I think I was a bit more excited pre-reading it, but I wasn't excited as I was reading it, unfortunately. But it hasn't stopped me from learning anything. I think what it is T.D.Jakes is very good at bringing out the problem and, putting it in a way that's understandable, putting it in a way that's in your face and you going back and actually thinking about it. But in terms of expanding on the solution or a possible solution, I felt it was just a tad shallow, a tad, not in, like I would probably like. So yeah, just in that respect, that's probably why I didn't really enjoy it. So I like to learn, I like to grab from a book, and so this one, I wasn't really getting that so much, but I did learn, and I have 3 learning points from this book, which I'm going to share with you all. I hope you will all leave your learning points down below, make comments, join the discussion, and tell me what your thoughts were for the book as well. So let's get into this. Learning point number 1, you need to deal with self. That was one of the biggest things I learned from reading this book. I believe that you have to look at yourself, like what are your goals, what is your foundation, what are your standards, like where are you going, who are you, are the questions that we need to be looking at, the questions that we should not be afraid to ask ourselves. It talks about, in the book he mentioned something about confidence, and he said that confidence, the assurance of your confidence, it should come within, it shouldn't come from him, which is an expectation I know a lot of us are putting on our guys. We are putting onto guys, like it should come from them. And do you know what, even vice versa, the guy is looking for you to assure him of who he is, and some of our assurances, they need to be coming from within. Like we need to be able to deal with self. So I just think it's so paramount, so important that we are not afraid to look in the mirror and say, who am I? Where am I going? What am I about? What are my goals? What are my likes? What are my hobbies? What are my dislikes? I think it's so important that we do that we find who we are. And I'm not going to say you're going to get it perfect. And I know it's probably going to change whilst you're in marriage and things like that. But your core values, your core wants, your core goals in life, you should be seeking them out. You should be finding out, what is the purpose of my life? Is the purpose of your life to live just for a guy? Is it just to live to get married? Is it just to live to have a person by your side? I really do not think so. I think it's just so important for us to know our value. It's if we don't, it's like some of us are like diamonds given over to swine. People that girls that give themselves away so cheaply, they're just sleeping around, and it's not because they think they're cheap, but it's because they don't know their value, they don't know their worth, and they don't know who they are. They think that being with this person and that person paying them attention and doing this with that person is giving them some sort of assurance that they're somebody, you know. And I just think it's so important that we step back, we sit down, and we work on those things, you know. Confidence is a big thing. It's like so important. I remember when I went through a season where I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. Like, you know, you can look in the mirror, but you're not looking at you in the mirror. Like, I would do that because I didn't think I was pretty. I just didn't have the confidence that, you know. And I just think it's so important that we learn to deal with ourselves first. Like, before you're rushing to get into a relationship, deal with self first. Look at yourself. Like, read this book. Like, for me, the first part was my favorite chapter, or the first section, Her Lady, was my favorite section of the book, because it really just brought out questions. It brought out questions that I would ask myself and say it's true, like, oh gosh, like, have I thought about this area? And questions I did ask myself before getting into a relationship to get married, that, yeah, I had to ask myself, I had to come to terms with, I had to look at and really think about it. And I just think it's so important. I think he mentioned one thing. He said it's virtually impossible for someone to appreciate you if you are not settled, you know. And yeah, someone might appreciate things about you and things like that, but I think to really enjoy, you kind of want to know where each other are at. You want to kind of know how each other, you know, chills, your calm down, not when you're here, there. No, like, you just need to know who you are, because sometimes that finding yourself, and we're gonna be finding ourselves, and I don't believe the journey just stops one day. Wow, I know who I am, but the confidence grows by God's grace. Like, the confidence grows depending on where you're looking for it. So yeah, the ladies, work on yourself first. Deal with yourself first. Do not be afraid to deal with yourself first. Learning point number 2: hold your standards even in hard times. That is just something I felt I got from the book also, because he just talked a lot about the virtuous woman, and our standards and the standard of a guy and things like that. So I just felt like that was such an important learning point to take from the book. And what do I mean? We should all have standards. I think it's important to have standards before you get in a relationship, and I think it's important to have standards for your relationship. I think one of the biggest things before you getting in a relationship, a common one, is like sex before marriage. I think that's probably one big topic that is out there. And you know, there's people that actually want to work on this. They actually want to do this, but because they've heard the rest of society, a lot of society saying, no, it's okay, that's just what happens, and cool, if that's what you're on, like, that's cool. But there's people that's not what they're on, and that's not what they want to do, you know. And I think if you're one of those people that want to hold on to it, and that's your standard, like, don't be afraid to hold on to that standard, even in challenging times, even where people are saying, no, you're not going to get a man because you're not ready to sleep with him, and like, no, be ready to hold your standards, because there will be someone out there that will appreciate you for doing that. There will be someone out there that will love you for, you know, holding those standards. And you might have some other standards that you are not holding on to, or you're holding on to, that someone out there also has those same standards. And when you come together, you will just be like, wow, like, I didn't even know there was someone out there like that. There was someone out there with the same kind of thinking like me. Like one of the biggest things for me and my husband is just how we would, I guess, view the word, like how we would go into the Bible and pull things apart, and how we viewed things from what we'd read, or not even just from what we'd read, like what we just believed God had been telling us and things like that. So even our getting into a relationship, our standard was, you got to hear from God, like, before. So this is before getting into a relationship. That was our standard. Like, I was thoroughly persuaded that God would tell me. He was thoroughly persuaded of that also. So, you know, it just made it easy when we actually had the discussions. It was like, oh wow, like, that's what I think. And you know, so just don't be afraid to hold your standards, even through challenging times. Because I know I got, according to, especially the Nigerian community, I got married old. And you know, like, that was one of my things that I just knew God would speak about it, you know, and he surely did. In the end, he surely did, you know. So even through challenging times, like, hold your standards. And I think there's some standards that I think he talks a lot about in the book as well, before, after you get married. So I've thinking about communication, how you speak, and where you put your trust in one another. I think those things are just so important. Sorry, let me just go back again. So just going back, so yeah, so keeping your standards are so important. So, you know, there's some people that will see you with your standards and they're not ready to pay the price. Like, and that's cool. Like, do not be afraid. Like, that is cool. There's also standards that you should be keeping in your relationship. I think that you should kind of, like, not goals, standards, I'm kind of maybe mixing them up slightly or kind of using them interchangeably, but just core things that you know you want in your relationship, and especially around communication, how you want to be with one another, and things like that. Because I tell you, there are so many people out there that are ready to give you information, and none of it's for you. Like, not all of it is for you. Like, not all of it you should be taking on board. Like, you shouldn't be, because where they're going with their relationship may be totally different to where you're going, you know. So things like, oh, you know, some people, they want to have kids straight away, and some people, they don't, you know. And the outside world, people will be telling you different things as to why you should have it now, and you actually have to be like, okay, this is what we planned, this is where we're going, this is what we want to do, kind of thing. And sometimes just be like, oh no, like, we're not going to do that. I was talking to a girl today, and she was just talking about how her husband doesn't cook in the house because they live with their in-laws. And she was like, not that he can't cook, but if he cooks, because of culturally, they're going to be looking at him and like, what are you doing? You're the man, you ain't supposed to cook, you know, that kind of thing. But she's come from a home where her dad would cook, and that was not a thing to her. So but if they were in a house by themselves, she was like, yeah, we'd probably cook together all the time, kind of thing. And those are those standards where sometimes you've got to have them, because people have their own views, people have their own thoughts on how they think it should work, and but used to are in this relationship, and used to need to know how you want to build it. So I just think that's so important. Communication, you know, how open you want to be with each other. I think that's one of my biggest things, that I want us to be like transparent, like so transparent, like there's just no secrets, kind of thing. And some people will say, oh, that's not really good, you know, there should be that family secrets and this, that, the other. And yeah, like, if that's how y'all want to do it, like, that's cool, but that's not how I want to do it, you know. Like, that's just not where I am going with it. And I think that is a big thing. And also, like, another one he talks about is speech, and how you talk to your husband or your partner. And I just think that's so important, because like, I'm so guilty of it. I'm so guilty of it, like, so guilty. Like, it's so bad. I just feel like I nag him sometimes, only sometimes, not all the time, because like, I'm really loving him. But I just feel like I can be so nagging sometimes, and it's possibly because there's been a lack of communication, that I've just kind of harbored it all, and then I just have to get it out, and when it comes out, it's all naggy, you know. And I hear myself doing it as I'm doing it, but I can't stop. Yeah, like, it's a challenge. Like, and so one of my big things, you know, a standard that I want to set in our house is on how we talk to one another, you know, and, you know, lifting each other up. I want us to encourage one another, you know, because as well, I just believe that when I have kids, like, if I'm having that challenge now, when I have kids, like, what's just going to make that change? What's going to make that different, you know? Because the worst thing is, I think it's a learned mentality. Like, it's not something I've purposely picked up, it's just something I have picked up, which is bad. Like, just bad communication. Like, I feel like sometimes I'm bad at I'm very good at pointing out the negative and not the positive. I think that's so bad. So bad. Like, I'm just so good at pointing out the negative. And it's not just on him. I do it to myself. Like, I will look at a picture and I'll be like, oh, I need to do that. Oh gosh, this, you know, how you want everything to be so perfect. And I just think it's such a bad thing to have, that I don't want that to be the standard in our household. I do not want that to be the standard in our household. I want to heighten the bar. I want us to be able to, you know, talk to one. I want to encourage one another. And I know how to encourage, don't get me wrong. But, you know, sometimes when you have a gap, you're not living together. There's something you can just have and then cross your mind and you've forgotten by the next time. But when you're living together, kind of sometimes the thoughts just come out. Just pour out. And before you've finished, you're like, oh man, why? So I just think that's important. Those are like some of the standards that I'm hoping to uplift in my house, that he speaks about a lot as well. Like, and I think that's such a big one, about being an encourager to your husband. Like, and I see some couples and I'm just like, if you knew how to encourage your husband, like, he'd be awesome. You know, that saying that there's a good woman behind every good man, there's a good woman. I think that's just so real. Like, he needs to be the one, you need to be that one that he can come home to and just, you know, make him feel the best all the time. And that's just definitely a standard I want to set in my household. And yeah, like, pray for me, like, help, because I don't want to be a dad. I don't want to be a dad. I don't want to be a dad. Like, help. So y'all, that's just one of my standards, some of my standards. And so, as I said, keep your standards, hold your standards, and do not let them go, even during hard times. What people might say, the pressures of what people are saying, or how the world seems to be doing it, or that it doesn't seem to be working out for you. Trust me, if you're being reasonable, because there is a big difference between being high maintenance. If you are being reasonable, like, it will work out for you. You know, where are those standards from? Another thing to check. It will work out for you. Like, do not be scared. Learning point number 3, your foundation matters. I think for me, from the whole book, he kept going back to your beginning, your beginning, your beginning, your beginning, your beginning. You know, and I just felt that was so powerful. So that is why that is one of my learning points, like, your foundation matters. And it kind of encapsulates all the other ones, like, because it is about your foundation, it is about your standards, it is about where you're coming from, and it is about where you're going, because these things matter. Like, I know there's some things I've learned from my household that I needed coming into marriage. I could see that, wow, like, I needed to sort that out, because it's not helpful. You know, it's not helpful. Just as I mentioned about that, kind of being able to point out the negative and not the good so easily. Like, yeah, I can encourage, but I don't know, it's just easier to point the negative stuff out. And I can just see how that is not good in marriage. I can see how that affects my husband. But because, even though I've hated it, and that's the worst thing, you know, you hate something, but for whatever reason it's so in you and you just find yourself doing it. You know, and those are those things that we actually have to stand back and say, where have I come from? Like, he mentions a quote in the book. He says, if you don't like what you're seeing, go back to check what you have sown, because it's true. Like, what's coming out of you is a product of what is going in you. Trust me. Like, if you're always swearing and stuff, you need to go check what you're watching, what you're listening to, because these things, they take effect. And our viewpoints, like, our viewpoints from when we were young, they take effect. They are in your mind, like, they are working in your mind, and they are marring your viewpoints on how you see things. So it's just so important for you to look back and say, what is my foundation? Is what's been sown does it need to be uprooted? And just do not be afraid to uproot things. So there are things I am looking at myself and saying, no, this needs to go. And that sometimes includes friends, because you have some friends in your life that they are not helping you on your journey. Like, they are not helping you at all. They are not. And I just think it's so important for you to be so truthful with yourself on such things, and just be ready to do what you need to do in order to get to where you need to get to. Like, you're on a journey. Don't waste time. Just don't waste time, you know. So check your foundation, check what's been sown in your life, your thoughts, where they're coming from, where you're going, because these things make a big difference, as in they make a big difference. Like, but that brings me to the end of my video. As I said, I hope this has all made sense. I'll just go through my 3 learning points again. So the first learning point was you need to deal with yourself. Second learning point was raise your standards even through the hard times. Do not let go of them. And third learning point is your foundation matters. So listen to the video again. I hope there were some nuggets in it. If you haven't read the book, do pick up the book. It was T.D.Jakes, The Lady, Her Lover and Her Lord. At least listen to our other videos, which hopefully are in the play bar, and I'll put them all down below, just so you could kind of get a feel of what was in the book, and you can kind of see if you would be ready to read it. I remember speaking to someone and she was just like, I loved the book, it was so amazing, and I read it and I was like, wow, like, I ain't seen this love. So I think as well, again, where you're coming from, you may be able to relate so much differently, and that's why I've done the book club. I want to hear your viewpoints, I want to hear your comments, so make sure you leave them down below. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, join the Facebook group. I will put all the details in the group below. We are going to be moving on to our next book of the book club. Ooh, super excited. It's going to be the month of love, so I've got a lovely book to let you know about. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. So make sure you are getting on board and you are subscribing so you can be kept up to date with the latest. Thanks again for watching. We love you. Bye.
You say you want my love, come make I give you small. Sorry, Wagba. Chop and when we